Hi all. So let me just go over a couple things that have been questions that have been asked since I did the initial post on the listserv. So what you're looking at right now is the Windows notebook or the OneNote notebook that I use for my Summer 1 class. And the way I set this up is using what's called this class notebook concept up here. So the class notebook allows you, the teacher, to have uh, a notebook essentially set up for all your students. So these names down here were my students in the class, and the way that the notebook is set up is that each student has their own section. So while you're the teacher, because you set the notebook up, and you can add and remove teachers if you have graduate students or TAs or something, um, you, the teacher, see everything, and the students would only see, let me close them down here again. They would only see the collaboration space, the content library, and their own name. So let me get more into that in a second, but just to re-go over it, in this case, in the way I use this class is I just created lecture notes for the various classes. And what I typically did for this one, as I said earlier, that I actually lectured in this class. So what I did was I created the notes using my Surface Pro tablet, and I did the writing while I was teaching the class. And then what I tended to do was to go back and clean up the notes so that they were things that the students could go back to. This is not what I did in the second class. So just wanted to show you that briefly. Now what I'm going to do is switch over to one of the courses that I taught in summer 2, which I've configured slightly differently. So let me just and by the way, I am running OneNote for Windows 10 on my Windows machine right now. There are questions about running Macs. I don't have a Mac, so I haven't been able to run it completely, but obviously there's not a OneNote for Windows 10 running on a Mac. If anybody has a Mac and wants to chime in on how this works, please do so. But for right now, I'm going to continue on assuming that you're running a Windows 10 machine and your students are running a Windows 10 machine. However, everything can be done through the web as well, and I'll talk about that through onedrive.uml.edu. But again, let me put that off for a second. All right, so let me close up all the different spaces here, and I had all my students open in this situation. So let me just close a few of them down. So in this case, you might notice that there's a teacher-only space. So this is a place, like kind of a scratchbook, where you can create different items that only you can see. So in this case, the students still only saw the collaboration space, the content library, and their own particular sections. In this case, there was assignments, quizzes, and group assessments. In this case, in the content library, I again posted some example problems here, but mostly I did things inside the Zoom sessions. And in this case, I was more or less just riffing off of stuff that I was doing while I was teaching the class itself. Now, again, the same issue goes that if you were someone looking at this, so you can close down so you can have the entire window open. And if I go back to my home button, or my view button rather, I can zoom out and you can see the entire page, and you can zoom in. Now, the key thing here is that if you're working on a tablet, you can be zoomed in very close and just writing here, so you can keep your writing neat, and you can be slowly scrolling through the work. Whereas the student, they have their own control over the level of zoom on any given page, so they can scroll up and down even while you're writing on your tablet and updating the notebook. I didn't do any collaborative work when I was working in this section in the content library. So that was typically me lecturing and answering questions. So what I did in terms of the breakouts rooms is I created, so this was a small class, so I typically had 3 or 4 students in a breakout room. So what I did was I created just 4, or in this case 5 collaboration spaces, and for each of the breakout groups. So the one thing is, yes, the students can see the work being done in the other breakout rooms. I didn't worry about that. There might be a way around that, but I think that's getting a little bit more difficult. What I typically did was, so let me click on one here. Uh, so I would give them a problem to work on. And then what I typically did is, just so I could remember who was in what room, I just took a screenshot of the breakout rooms and who was in them and just dropped that into each of the breakout room pages. And then the students worked on it. So in this case, at least one of the students had a tablet that had a pen, so they were able to work on it. If I go to another breakout room for August 3rd, you'll see that this group didn't, and they were working and they were just typing. I don't love this as much, but they were trying to do some work. And you'll notice that there's initials next to it. So the initials are for whoever is writing. So there's P and FT here. So if we look at, we're in breakout room 2, so this would be Parth Partel, and I don't know who FT is, maybe someone who jumped into this room, or that's some, again, I didn't worry too much about that when I was first using it, but you may want to clean that up a little bit and verify that you have the correct initials. I haven't looked into that. Someone else can if they want to kind of get how that's working. So that's how I use the breakout rooms. And then this was totally what I did. I wanted to have some hook for the work that was being done in the breakout rooms. So then what I did was I basically copied this into, you'll see down here, and so this is Parth Patel group assessment. So I would drop that into here. So on August 3rd, Parth gave 4s to everybody that he was working with. So I basically had them grade each other. This was sort of kind of to keep the honest man honest. I subsequently thought that probably the best way to do this would to be give each student a set number of points that they can give out to the students, but in this case, the student wouldn't have 16 points to give out. Maybe they'd only have 12 points to give out. So they could give themselves, everybody, a 3, basically a B in the amount of work. Or if they, now they have to recognize that, say, Bryce Condon was really doing an excellent job, maybe Parth would give him 4, but then he'd have to decide if either Muhammad or Adam should get the 2, where maybe they weren't pulling their weight. But if they were all pulling the same weight, they all get Bs. So there's different things you can play around with that. Again, this isn't automated so you'd have to go in here and clean up all this data yourselves. So I probably don't recommend that unless you have a TA or something that could do that for you. How would you do this? So if I went into the teacher only space, let me just give an example here. So I'm just going to create a new page. I'll add a new page. Let me zoom in a little bit, and I'll say demo for, I can't type today, distribution. So there was a question about, could we use PDFs? So let me just pull a PDF in here. I have a manual for a flight controller that I'm working with. So I've just pulled the PDF in here. So you can upload it to OneDrive and insert a link, or insert it as an attachment. But in this case, I'll put it in as a printout. So give it a second, and it inserts the printout. And as I think I mentioned in one of the videos, or the video that I posted that's silent, you can't edit these. In other words, it's basically inputting images as opposed to an actual editable PDF. So it's basically not, you don't have Adobe Acrobat functionality. But you can come in here, if I go to, say, the Draw tab, and I don't have it set up so that I can draw in here right now. Well, let me just put a shape in here. So you can do that, and I can come in here and type. So this is me typing on a PDF. And then you can take the whole thing and drag it around wherever you'd want to put it on the PDF. So it's not the best, but it is definitely something. So say now I wanted to distribute this as a worksheet to everybody for work by themselves or something along those lines. So what you do is go up to your class notebook and you go to distribute page. And you can distribute a page to everybody, or you can do it to an individual or particular groups. I haven't looked at the group distribution, so maybe I'll make another video after I figured that out. But in this case, I'm just going to distribute the page. It opens up over here, and it's going to ask me where I want to distribute it. So for instance, over here, there's assignments, quizzes, and group assessments. This is a little slow, so but you know, if you do it beforehand, it's fine. Doing it during the class is something maybe different. So I'm going to put it into assignments and distribute. So it'll take a while for it to propagate through, but it will eventually show up in every student's assignment location. All right, so I'm just going to close this down, and we'll come back and check it out in a few seconds. So how would you create a class notebook? You do that from OneNote. So let me, or OneDrive rather. So let me open up a browser here. And I am going to go to onedrive.uml.edu. I'm already logged in, right, because I'm using a UML computer, and I log in every time I turn my computer on, essentially, even though I'm home. So this is my OneDrive right now. So these are all the files that I have up on OneDrive. I actually was using Dropbox for a while, so I'm actually going to have to migrate all my stuff over, but that's for another day. Up here into OneDrive, you have all the apps. If I go into OneNote, this opens up the OneNote application. So again, I mentioned this, that if I now navigate to the MEC 44 10 Summer 2020, I will be able to see at least everything in the content library. Well, I'll be able to see everything. And again, your students would just be able to see the content library or the teacher-only sites. Let me just do that. Here's the MEC 44 Summer 20. So if I go, so now so this is again a way around it for doing if you're running a MacBook or anything like that, you can get into your notebooks here. So here's MEC 4410 Summer 2020, and I'm now in the OneNote app. It's kind of a shame you can't in the OneNote online version, you can't shut down this window like I can do over here. So yeah, so I actually do see all my students here. So who was I? I was in Condon Bryce's assignments. So I'll click into his assignments, and I was on his quiz 4 to 5. So you can see that I actually was grading quizzes in this manner. Again, this was it's a little dodgy because the students actually have the ability to edit this material. I'm not sure if you can lock it down, but I basically use this for returning quizzes. I had them, in this case I didn't. I had them just post their assignment here and I graded it, but then I quickly recorded the grades. So there's different ways around it. I guess you can, I don't know about locking pages. Again, something I haven't looked at or didn't have time to look at. But regardless, if I make an edit here, let me zoom in here. And if I come over here and you can't see where I'm typing, and if let me leave that over there so we don't confuse the issue. So this is on my desktop and this is in the web. So I'm just going to type, "This was a great job." And you can see that it's pretty much real time. There is a little bit of a delay. Okay, so this is again going to be completely up to you folks, but if you like this format or at least want to play around with it, the way you do this is right, so this is your standard ribbon. You'll click on Class Notebook and you will create Class Notebook. Now what's going to happen is it launches your browser, brings you basically into OneDrive. And it's going to say, what's the name of your class? So I will just say demo for faculty. And I'll go next. It says, great. What places do you want? So this is what they're going to create on default. And they tell you what can and cannot be edited. So it's, and then you go to, if you want to add another teacher or say a graduate student, you can do that here. You can go to next. Now you're going to add student names. And I'll just grab a class list. So here's for my fluid mechanics class. And I'll just scroll down and I'll say notify all students. And then I just do Control A, Control C. And then I open up Notepad or your favorite text editor. And then I just do Control V. And then I do an edit, replace, find what, commas, replace with semicolons, replace all. And then I just do a Control A, Control C, and then I come back to here and just do Control V. And then it will put them all in, and then it recognizes all the names. As long as you get an X next to it that you could delete it, it says that it recognizes it. So then I'll go next, and it says I can design different private spaces. So you can, would be what's in each one of these locations. So in this one I have assignments, quizzes, and group assessments. So over here by default there's handouts, class notes, homeworks, quizzes. So you can delete sections and add sections of your own. And it says now what's going to look, so it's going to tell you there's a welcome space, a collaboration space, a content library, teacher only, and names for all the students. Okay, so I'm not going to click on create right now. Oh, and this shows you what the student's notebook is going to be. So this is what the student sees. So they don't notice the teacher content or the teacher section or the other students. I'm not going to hit create because I don't want to create this notebook right now with all my students' names. But once that's done, it should launch an email that every student will receive. And what I'll try to do the day of the workshop is that we can do this interactively, and I will create a notebook. Hopefully I'll be able to get a quick list of all the people that are at the workshop, and we'll be able to set it up and do it that way. All right, so this gives just a very, very fast overview of what I'm doing with it, and I'll try to do some work answering very specific questions in terms of how you can create groups and privacy, or not privacy, but with regards to primarily what I'm using this for was a interactive collaboration tool. So there is questions about monitoring things that are going on in the various breakout rooms. Well, you can do this. While the students are in a breakout room, you can just click between the different breakout rooms and see what's going on. And because, again, this stuff is updating more or less in real time. You know, in the best of all possible worlds, it would be great if every student had a pen or some type of stylus that they can work with, but the students do tend to find different ways of. Definitely the students that tended to have a pen, I think, got more out of it than they have just typing. But there's ways that students can do this. For instance, they can do something, like I'm not going to, well, yeah, I have something here on a notebook. So say I was working on something here and I wanted to now share it with the people I'm working with. So I guess I could take a picture, upload the picture to Google, and here's my photo. Uh, Copy image. There you go. Okay, so there's different things. So I've got to play around with different ways of doing things, but I've just put the image into the page. So that's one thing the students could do, and maybe the students can be working individually on something for 5 minutes, and then they each take a picture of their page and they throw it into the breakout room collaborative session, and they could talk about it. Uh, the mind boggles at the different types of possibilities you have, but you have to sort of play around with what's going to work best for you. All right, that's all I'm going to do right now, and hopefully you'll find something good out of this, and I will try to post another one tomorrow. I'll try to get one through each day, just so you have something to work off of. All right, that's it for now. As I've been putting in all my videos, this is Professor Sullivan signing off.